What you're watching unfold right now is not a technology story. It is a power story. And if you think it doesn't affect you sitting here in the United States of America, you need to think again and you need to think harder. China's Chengdu Aircraft Industry Group has released footage of multiple J-20 stealth fighters in yellow primer undergoing systematic test flights, and experts are saying the Chinese manufacturer has reached an entirely new level in aircraft production. That word, systematic, that's the word you need to hold on to, because what China is doing right now is not just building a fighter jet, it is building a combat system, it is building a war machine, and it is doing so at a pace and a scale that should be keeping every serious defense thinker in Washington up at night. The new J-20A variant features a redesigned rear canopy that reduces aerodynamic drag, enhances efficiency in supersonic flight, and is likely to further improve stealth capabilities. And this new variant integrates the WS-15 next-generation engine with the first footage of a serial production fighter with the new power plant published in late December 2025. Let that sink in for a moment. The engine problem, the one vulnerability that critics of the J-20 program have been citing for years, the one gap that American analysts kept pointing to as proof that China still had a long way to go. That gap is now closing, fast. The WS-15 is designed to deliver dry thrust sufficient for sustained supercruise, supersonic flight without afterburners estimated at Mach 1.3 to 1.5 or higher, while providing maximum afterburner thrust in the range of approximately 40,000 pounds per engine, potentially surpassing the Pratt & Whitney F-119 on the F-22 Raptor, which produces around 35,000 pounds each. Now, I want you to understand what that number means in real-world terms. The F-22 Raptor is America's premier air superiority fighter. It is the crown jewel of United States air power, and what the Chinese are telling us through their own released footage and their own confirmed test flights is that their engine may now be more powerful than ours. That is not a minor footnote in a defense procurement report. That is a fundamental shift in the global balance of air power. On January 24, 2026, China's Chengdu Aircraft Corporation shared pictures showing a J-20A stealth fighter flying with exhaust features consistent with the WS-15 turbofan engine, and this breakthrough addresses one of the long-standing challenges in the J-20 program, the reliance on interim power plants that limited the aircraft's full fifth-generation potential. For years, people in the defense community on the American side would say, well, the J-20 is impressive looking, but it doesn't have the engine to back it up. They would say China got the airframe right, but got the propulsion wrong. Well, those talking points are now expired. They need to be retired, because what we saw on January 24th, 2026 is a production-ready J-20A lifting off with a domestically developed engine that puts it firmly in the conversation with the best that the United States has ever built. And then there is the J-35. Don't forget about the J-35, because Washington seems to be doing precisely that, forgetting about it, or at least dramatically underestimating it. Shenyang Aircraft Corporation has successfully completed acceptance flights for two variants of its new stealth fighter, the land-based J-35A and the carrier-capable J-35B, and marking the PLA's first major tests of 2026. The J-35B features a distinct twin-wheel nose gear designed for the electromagnetic catapults on the Fujian carrier. So now you have China fielding not one, but two fifth-generation stealth fighter platforms simultaneously. And one of them is designed to operate off a carrier that uses the same electromagnetic launch technology as our most advanced carriers. Think about that strategic picture. Think about what it means for power projection in the Pacific. Following the formal induction of the J-35 into service on September 3rd, 2025, the platform is now being integrated into the air wing of the electromagnetic launch carrier Fujian. And while Lockheed Martin continues a stable delivery rate of approximately 156 F-35s per year, those aircraft are distributed among dozens of global allies. That is the numbers problem in plain English. America is building F-35s and spreading them across the globe, to Japan, to South Korea, to NATO allies, to Australia. China is building J-20s and J-35s and keeping them concentrated in the theater that matters most to Beijing, the Western Pacific. The same theater where Taiwan sits, the same theater where American carrier strike groups would have to operate in any conflict scenario, concentration versus dispersal. That is an asymmetric advantage that numbers alone don't fully capture. China's combined infrastructure expansion across its major aerospace sites exceeds 743,000 square meters, equivalent to roughly 8 million square feet, which surpasses the total size of the F-35 manufacturing complex in Fort Worth, Texas. And estimates suggest that AVIC could achieve an annual production capacity of 300 to 400 fighter aircraft, including both fourth and fifth generation models. Read that again. China is building factory space that exceeds our own primary F-35 manufacturing facility. And they are not doing that because they plan to build a handful of planes for parade purposes. They are doing that because they intend to produce these aircraft at industrial scale, at wartime production rates, at a tempo that the United States Defense Industrial Base, hollowed out by decades of cost-plus contracting, consolidation, and complacency, simply cannot match right now. Estimates suggesting 200 to 300 J-35A aircraft operational by 2030 align with broader modernization targets that envision the J-35A supplementing the J-20 in high-intensity conflict scenarios, generating numerical mass and distributed lethality across multiple axes. 200 to 300 J-35s, add those to the growing J-20 fleet. By late October 2025, defense analysts confirmed that more than 300 units of the J-20 were already fully integrated into People's Liberation Army Air Force service across several theater commands, making the J-20 fleet the largest fifth-generation force outside the United States. So right now, today, as you are watching this, China has over 300 J-20s already in active service. They are adding J-35s. They are expanding factories, and they have a timeline that points toward over 1,000 fifth-generation fighters by 2030. Now, let me talk about something that goes beyond the hardware, because this is where the story gets truly profound and truly dangerous. This is where China has made a leap that most American commentators have not fully processed yet. The J-20S acts as a command hub for coordinating drone swarms, performing electronic warfare, and executing long-range maritime strikes, and it enhances battle space situational awareness through advanced sensor fusion, and it is expected to operate in tandem with other J-20 variants and unmanned systems. Do you understand what that architecture looks like? It looks like the future of warfare, not the future 10 years from now, the future that is being tested and deployed right now in 2026 by the People's Liberation Army Air Force. China's demonstration in November 2025 showed the J-20 flying alongside the GJ-11 unmanned combat air vehicle and J-16D electronic warfare aircraft, manned-unmanned teaming. A J-20 in the sky not as a lone fighter, but as the command node of an entire aerial combat system, directing stealth drones, pulling in targeting data from electronic warfare aircraft, fusing all of that into a single tactical picture that one human pilot cannot possibly match in reaction time or in processing power without AI assistance. That is the future of aerial combat, and China is fielding it now, not simulating it, not briefing Congress about it, fielding it. The J-20S will likely operate as an aerial command and control node in the sky, able to direct drone attacks and network key data across multiple domains in a manner similar to the F-47, F-22, and F-35. The significant difference, however, is that China is doing this at scale, and they are doing this in a theater where geography already favors them. Every J-20S that takes off from a Chinese airbase over the Taiwan Strait is operating close to its own logistics chain, close to its own air defense network, close to its own ground-based missile systems. Every American aircraft that has to respond has to travel thousands of miles, cross the Pacific, and operate at the far end of a very long and very fragile supply chain. China is aggressively closing its strategic range gap by converting Xi'an Y-20 airlifters into aerial tankers, and by 2035, Beijing's tanker fleet could reach 100 aircraft, effectively doubling the operational reach of J-20 and J-35 stealth fighters. And this expansion challenges U.S. air superiority beyond the second island chain, threatening bases in Guam and Japan beyond the second island chain. That phrase should stop you cold, because that is the geographic buffer that American strategic doctrine has been built around for decades. The idea that even if China could challenge us close to their coast, we could fall back to Guam, to Japan, and maintain our ability to project power, that buffer is now being compressed. The J-20's range, extended by indigenous tankers, means that American bases we have historically considered safe are now within operational reach of Chinese stealth aircraft. The J-20's range and survivability threaten U.S. forward bases, carrier strike groups, and logistics nodes at distances exceeding 1,000 kilometers. undermining traditional power projection assumptions. And while the F-22 retains close combat superiority, its limited numbers and aging fleet contrast sharply with China's expanding inventory and production momentum. Limited numbers and an aging fleet. That is the honest assessment, and it is the assessment you will not hear from the Pentagon podium in a press conference. You will hear about the F-35's sensor fusion. You will hear about the F-22's maneuverability. You will not hear a senior official stand up and say, frankly, we have a quantity problem and we have an age problem, and the country that is building fighters faster than we are is not an ally, it is our primary strategic competitor. China revealed new capabilities of the J-20S variant on January 11, 2026, during a press statement on the 15th anniversary of its maiden flight, with Beijing's newest variant of its J-20 fifth-generation fighter aircraft having the ability to conduct precision strikes on maritime targets, naval vessels, aircraft carriers. The J-20S is now publicly declared to be a carrier killer. This is China telling the United States Navy directly, openly, without ambiguity, that the vessels you are counting on to project power in the Pacific are now legitimate high-value targets for a fifth-generation stealth fighter that you cannot reliably detect before it is already in weapons range. And the weapons range on the PL-15 air-to-air missile that J-20s carry is reported to exceed 200 kilometers. Beyond visual range, beyond the range at which most American fighters could engage in return. Silicon carbide semiconductors have tripled the J-20's radar detection range, giving the fighter a far more substantial first-mover advantage, with these chips enhancing radar power, missile accuracy, and even laser weapon performance, making them a core element of China's defense technology. Tripled the radar detection range. Think about what that means in a combat scenario. The J-20 sees you before you see it. It fires before you can fire. It turns away before you even know it was there. That is not a fair fight. That is an ambush. And China has designed their primary stealth fighter specifically to execute that ambush against American and allied aircraft operating in the Pacific. The Pentagon said the People's Liberation Army Air Force has begun testing a long-range sixth-generation stealth fighter, likely the tailless three-engine jet spotted in December 2024. So while the J-20 and J-35 are being produced at industrial scale, while factories are being expanded, while manned-unmanned teaming is being fielded and exercised, China is simultaneously developing a sixth-generation platform. They are not waiting to master the fifth generation before moving to the next. They are running these programs in parallel. They are doing what the American defense industry has failed to do, which is move fast, invest heavily, and think decades ahead rather than from one budget cycle to the next. F-35s were reported operating without radars with compensatory weights in February 2026 due to AN/APG-85 integration issues. Let that contrast land with full force. China is releasing footage of J-20As with next-generation WS-15 engines completing systematic flight tests, demonstrating manned-unmanned teaming, revealing carrier-killing capabilities, expanding factories, and simultaneously, American F-35s were flying without operational radars because of integration problems with the new sensor system. That is the contrast that defines this moment. That is the gap between a military-industrial complex that is ascending and one that is, in certain critical areas, struggling. None of this means the United States is without options. None of this means that a war is inevitable or that American pilots cannot fight and prevail. The F-22 still has capabilities that no J-20 has yet matched in certain parameters of close-range air combat. American pilots, by most credible assessments, are still better trained and have more accumulated operational experience than their PLAF counterparts. The F-35 sensor fusion architecture, when it is working, produces a situational awareness picture that remains world-class. And the United States still has alliances, Japan, Australia, South Korea, the Philippines, that provide basic intelligence sharing and combined arms depth that China simply does not have. But here is what I need you to take away from everything I have laid out for you today. The assumption of American air superiority that has governed defense planning in this country since the end of the Cold War, the bedrock assumption that underpins every war game, every force structure decision, every procurement choice, that assumption is no longer safe to make. RUSI's conclusion that Western air power faces a potentially revolutionary challenge captures the cumulative impact of stealth mass, missile reach, and integrated doctrine now shaping the Indo-Pacific battle space. Revolutionary. That word is precise, and it is deliberate, and it means exactly what it says. What China has done with the J-20 and J-35 program is not imitation. It is not plagiarism. Whatever its origins, whatever debates exist about technology transfer and reverse engineering, what stands on Chinese runways today, what is flying over the Taiwan Strait, what is being loaded onto the deck of the Fujian carrier, is a genuine, indigenous, operationally capable, industrially scalable, combat-ready fifth-generation Air Force, and it is growing faster than ours. The math of that reality has geopolitical consequences that extend far beyond the skies over the Pacific. It shapes the confidence with which Beijing makes decisions about Taiwan. It shapes the calculations of every nation in Asia about which way to lean. It shapes the credibility of every American security commitment in the region. Power is not just what you can do. Power is what others believe you can do. And right now, in the spring of 2026, the world is watching China's stealth fighters fly, watching its factories expand, watching its carriers receive new aircraft, and it is doing the math. The rest of the world is doing the math that Washington has been too slow and too proud to do publicly. That is the real breakthrough happening over China's test ranges right now. Not just a new engine, not just a new airframe, a new global calculus about who commands the sky.